Yeah, hey, let's see. I think I know everyone here, but my name is Zach Serza. I'm with IBM, um, and we're just gonna do some sort of future discussion about work on Teuthology and its friends. Um, I've dropped a link to the Etherpad that we're sort of using to just sort of brainstorm ideas for today. Um, and yeah, I guess it looks like up top is we have a sort of a larger category here of Teuthology outside of Sepia. Um, just a tiny bit of background. Teuthology has been around for quite some time. It has most of its usage has been inside of Ceph's own upstream Sepia lab. We have off and on had other labs in operation. Um, some run by different companies entirely, and some just run by individuals. And so that's always kind of like a background interest is, while most of the development on Teuthology and the related tools are focused on, making things work in Sepia, we do want it to work wherever. And so um, the first item we have here is some work on Teuthology in the context of running in VMs. Um, Valerie, did you want to say a little bit about your work there?
Yes. So a couple months ago, I was working on trying to run Teuthology test on some IBM Cloud VMs, and I was able to schedule a run to its completion, involving deployment of Ceph ADM uh, and multiple OSTs and all of that on a cluster, a four-node cluster um, on uh, VMs. I've pasted a link to an Etherpad, which points to a guide of to how I did that. And and as for the future work regarding this, in next few months, we'll be creating a setup where we'll be running these pathology tests more regularly on VMs. So I think that will give us some insights on what else we'll get to improve or any faults that of running on private VMs like that.
Cool. Do you think this work would be able to be used in like with different VM technologies, or is it pretty specific?
Yeah, I think it can be used by um, any VM technology. For example, I tested on IBM Cloud VMs. Um, yep, I had some bunch of CentOS 9 VMs, and uh, it worked well on that.
Cool. And now, are these VMs that you set up manually for each test, or are we doing some kind of provisioning with Teuthology?
Yep, they are set up manually. Um, so far, what I've seen, I've run these pathology suits on them um, consecutively, and I didn't see any problem with the cleanup um, after
Hmm,
each run. So we might get more insight after we do it more regularly, but yeah, we have them set up manually, and um, then we configure. We use Ceph stack, and we configure these VMs as test nodes and run them as such.
that's cool. So that's right. You had mentioned to me earlier that you're using Ceph DevStack for that. So they're just being passed in as pre-existing nodes. Very cool. So I guess this work is appropriate for sort of smaller scale testing, I'm guessing. And if we wanted to really scale it up, we'd want to write code to do the actual like VM provisioning somewhere.
Yeah, I guess so.
Let's see, anything more about VMs, or we kind of brought up DevStack, we can pivot to that as well.
Yep. That's all on VMs. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you. So here we also have our GSOC intern, Parfait, who has done some work lately on Ceph Dev Stack, and there's a little bit more planned for the future. Parfait, do you want to talk about that work a little bit?
Yep. So I will go on what I did. So during my about 3 month internship, uh, I worked on Ceph Stack. So Ceph Stack is a tool we are building in development tool that will allow I say everyone that want to run self integration tests to run them locally and that using Podman container. So I will share a small presentation that I mean few slides. Yes. So I hope you are viewing my screen and
Yeah, we can see it.
okay fine. So as a self stack is a tool we are building to run Teuthology integration test in local and the tagline is simple is just to run Teuthology on Podman. And within self stack have been a teamwork. So during my internship I work with Teuthology team member and mainly Ashwarya, Junior, Valerie, and Zach. So I continue with my presentation. So the idea behind self-stack come from the fact that to maintain safe project stability, we need to run frequently integration tests, but it's not always trivial since to run integration tests, we have to deploy a full safe cluster. And even it's not that easy to deploy soft cluster. And that is why the project of self stack raised. And the goal is to build a tool that allow us to locally run self-test, self-integration test using Podman container. So uh, the target of self-stack, so I will just write again the definition, but the scope of self-stack is almost anyone that want to run Teuthology test, self-integration test, I say. And so it can be new developer or self-tester, even experienced developer and new contributor. And self DevStack offer many advantage over the CPL app for a while. So the first one is that everyone don't have access to Sepia. So even people that don't have access to Sepia can run integration test. And to deploy a if even if we don't have access to Sepia and want to deploy a safe cluster, we still need dedicated storage device. Self-test also fix that problem since it use loop devices. And the last one is that it's easy to configure self-test to meet our cluster need. We can easily configure for example, the number of test node or the number of storage device per test node and such thing. So uh, the goal and motivation behind that is to enable three things, I would say. And the first one is to lower the entry barrier for new self contributor. So making easy to run self integration tests, make self a project that is more accessible. Anyone that came on the project can immediately start running self-test, self-integration test. And secondly, even self-experienced developer can easily deploy a local environment for self-testing And lastly, it enable a faster testing loop so we can test our change in local quickly and easily, I say. So I will talk now about the design of Ceph stack. Ceph stack is built in Python and it use Podman container to run services that are need to run integration tests. So it include Postgre, Paddle, Pulpito, and we use to same container to run test node, CentOS test node for the moment. After that, I will present our roadmap for Self-Stack. So currently, Self-Stack supports running integration tests that need one OSD per test node. So we're able to run into suite like Org, Ceph, and small. And the part that I work on is to enable Self-Stack to run a another class of test suite that need multiple OSD per test node. So we are currently testing a new version of Ceph that is able to run more complex tests that require multiple OSD per test node. And in future, we are planning to two big feature, I say. And to the first one is to be able to configure the storage device size when using Ceph Stack, so we can mimic closer the production environment, some Ceph production environment. And the next one is to, instead of using loop devices, we want to be able to automatically consume devices that are not used on host machine. That is a feature that are not developed yet, but we are planning to do it. So after that, I will quickly talk about challenge that I faced working on the project. And the first one is about cell Linux also. Is cell Linux is not supposed to allow to mount loop devices in container as we want. So we have to write custom rule to enable that. And working aside the stack also allowed us to find few existing bugs in Ceph, and for example in deployment in row, OSD deployment. And the last challenge is that Ceph repo is not very aware of Ceph stack. So it happens sometime that a working version of Ceph stack stop working after some change in Ceph. So that I will say the three big challenge that I face working on Ceph stack. So, and if you're interested in the project, I will just drop the link in the chat, and your question are welcome.
Hi, not really a question, but I saw that one of your biggest challenge, and I completely understand with how Ceph, it has so many commits coming in every day, and the code changes, and I know that Ceph Dev Stack relies on you know Ceph, and I assume that we consume um, maybe the latest main of Ceph, but what if I think we can have some kind of when at least you're running the tests and developing Ceph Dev Stack, maybe we could have a kind of like a stable release version, or at least like a cutoff of tentacle or something, so that you can do your work on it, so that you don't get affected too much on the changes. Although it's not super ideal because obviously you want it to work on like the latest stuff. But that's just a thought that I had. I don't know if Zach or other people have different ideas.
Yes, with Zach, we are discussing. Zach proposed a idea about will the CI check so we can detect a change that could break self stack. I think Zach, it is a idea from Zach, so I think he can talk about it.
Yeah, so as Parfait mentioned, like during during his um, during his work, we ran into a number of issues. A couple of them were actually regressions in Ceph that it seemed like may not have really affected other deployment methods than like it may have only been Ceph DevStack that was affected by these regressions. And so um, one of the things that popped into my head was like, we do run Ceph DevStack regularly, but not in response to Ceph pull requests. And so we will only ever find these regressions too late, right? So I was thinking we may want to talk about implementing some kind of PR check for the Ceph project that runs Ceph DevStack, and at least that could give us like an early warning if a regression was about to be committed. I think there are some challenges with that, like what Teuthology suite do we run? Oh, John, what's up?
Hey, just to react to what you're saying. Ugh, wrong button in Jitsi. The There has been some frustration around some of the existing checks, in particular the API tests and the Windows tests. So I like where you're going, but I also want to throw out like a word of caution, which is I think you get a lot of pushback if you try to make it a mandatory check. What you might be able to do is start off by having it as an optional check, but having the DevStack team focusing on like, oh, all of a sudden we're seeing a string of errors, um, getting on that because we've had issues where like there's like lack of maintenance on some of these tests and it blocks all Ceph development for weeks.
Yes, I'm glad you bring this up because you're absolutely right. Like, especially around the API tests, we've had a lot of issues where development ended up getting stalled for a while because we had a mandatory check that was failing, and typically in like a really intermittent, hard to track down way. Um, those are a lot of people's least favorite days. So we don't want to make that problem worse. And I think for that reason, we wouldn't be able to make it a mandatory check. And I don't think I'd even really want that. But at least if it were a check that ran, informationally, we would at least be able to, when we run into a problem with Ceph DevStack, we would at least be able to go back and see, oh, okay, so when was the last time that check passed? What broke it? It could save a lot of time in debugging at a minimum.
This is a crazy idea, but just thought that what if you run some dev stack on Teuthology, like add a kind of like a suite or kind of like a YAML file in Teuthology that kind of like tries to deploy dev stack and exercise certain cases.
I That's a super entertaining idea. I love the idea of Teuthology running DevStack, which then runs Teuthology, and it's extra fun because DevStack does involve running Podman containers inside of Podman containers already. So we've got a very, very Russian nesting doll situation as it is. Realistically, though, I wonder if that might, cause more problems than it solves.
Yeah. Just,
But it would be at least fun. I agree. But I do think like one of the bigger challenges with this just more general ideas is deciding what tests to run. Maybe it's as simple as continuing to just run the smoke small suite, which is what we're doing today.
Yeah, I think that's a good start. Definitely.
And I guess ideally we'd be able to run it as a GitHub action as opposed to in our Jenkins server. And I mainly say that so that we could save our own resources.
Yeah, sounds good.
And I think taking advantage of Parfait's work would be really nice there to be able to use like configurable storage sizes. And Parfait, by the way, I really appreciated the presentation. It was really nice.
Thanks.
Any other questions, comments on DevStack stuff? Cool. Well, let's see. We can move on then. I had a couple items in here for OpenStack and OpenShift, but I'm not sure if there's much to discuss there, and that was kind of a just in case. Cool. We can. It sounds like we can skip those. I also see lib.
Wait. So I had some general questions about OpenStack. So is it kind of planned to make use of OpenStack instance like OVH again for Ceph Lab, or is it kind of some side project?
I would, and if someone who knows more wants to speak up, go ahead and interrupt me. My understanding is that it's kind of a side project at the moment, mainly being used to sort of supplement monitoring of upstream development progress. Not necessarily something we're planning on doing in Sepia. I think that my understanding as far as like our future lab development plans for upstream, my understanding is it doesn't really include OpenStack as like I don't think we're going to have a lot of OpenStack infrastructure on the Sepia side. The OpenStack work that has been done recently has been mostly on the IBM side, but running against upstream code. So less of a Sepia thing. There has been some discussion about, and this is a little bit different, but there has been some discussion about potentially having OpenShift virtualization support in the next iteration of the Sepia lab, but I can't speak very much to that. Oh, but the thing I should mention is that recently Deepshika did do work to fix up the OpenStack backend for Teuthology, so it is functional again. It had kind of, fallen out of maintenance and stopped working for a while, but it's functional again. But thanks for that work.
Right. I had a branch with Teuthology deployment command for OpenStack stuff using the Ansible, SFCM Ansible stuff, which is actually deploy an instance or just VMs. I don't know. Makes sense.
Oh, I have a very vague memory of that. So it was to deploy Teuthology in OpenStack?
Right.
Yeah,
So-
it uses Ceph CM Ansible at some point to configure the supported applications during Teuthology OpenStack execution. Does that answer your question, Kier?
My question is if it makes sense to review again that tool which allows to do deploy Teuthology and using Ansible, SFCM Ansible stack, just the Teuthology OpenStack tool itself. It doesn't do much with the I mean, it's kind of alternative way of doing stuff for deploying.
You mean to that we can reduce the dependency on Ceph CM Ansible is what you're saying? I'm sorry. I didn't quite get that.
Yeah, I mean, this my branch was based on the Ceph CM Ansible Teuthology deployment process. And it's a bit different than the Teuthology OpenStack tool, which is trying to do. So, and it worked as also as a verification for Ceph CM Ansible stack in general. But
So it sounds like
would it be useful or no? Just or is it some kind of absolutely different? Or I just was trying to understand what you guys are going to do with the revived patches for Teuthology OpenStack, because of some time seems like upstream was not interested in keeping OpenStack live code, but something changed, right?
Yeah, so the reason that we started working on it is that we wanted to run the upstream uh, suits that run on weekly basis into our lab. So that's the reason we set it up downstream, and we are kind of running those suits. And when we started, we was like broken, and we fixed a lot of things in the back end and everything. Now it's in working state. We are almost able to run all the suits except power cycle because it requires IPMI. So we are planning on running it on weekly basis so that we can identify issues earlier, because in CPL lab getting machine is a challenge. So that was the motivation behind it.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think the difference here is, I think here you're talking more about deploying Teuthology, the infrastructure in OpenStack, whereas Deepfik is mainly talking about Teuthology test nodes being provisioned using OpenStack.
Yeah, but I don't know, why do you need Teuthology OpenStack command? It doesn't help with this effort, because the provisioning machine in OpenStack is made by libcloud code. So the Teuthology OpenStack tool is actually doing something different. It's not.
Yeah, actually, so when you pass, there's a flag in that command, Teuthology OpenStack command. If you pass -FN setup, it basically sets up pulpito paddles and everything that is basically needed to run the suits on that machine. So it'll just provision one machine in the OpenStack, and on that, it'll just set up all the supporting applications. And from there, then on, we can just trigger
Right. This is what I'm saying, that Teuthology OpenStack is kind of a tool for deploying Teuthology itself on some machine in OpenStack. But what we are using, or what my tool was doing, it was using the Ceph CM Ansible to deploy Teuthology. So instead of using Teuthology OpenStack tool, which is deploying pulpito and pedals, etc., and maybe some other tool, some other things like pre-configuring NFS or DNS service, but it just reused the Sepia lab, maybe pre-existing IPMI. Oh, not IPMI. It's Pixie. Oh no, NFS and named server, which is already existed somewhere. But what was difference with the Teuthology deploy tool, it's which is not merged, but the branch is still present there. It was replicating virtualized environment for Teuthology in general. So it deployed named server as well in OpenStack itself, and allowed to absolutely run isolated tests in OpenStack, just using libcloud stuff, same as it was for the Sepia lot, but it was own name server. And as a side effect, it was testing the Ceph CM Ansible scripts for deploying Teuthology itself. So the way which Sepia infrastructure is maintained. Yeah, but I guess it's outdated already.
I do like the idea, I have to say, of using of like regularly exercising the Ceph CM Ansible code that deploys Teuthology, using something like this. Question, Deepshika, in your use of OpenStack, how are you deploying like the Teuthology and the related services? Is that by hand or what?
So there's a script called setup openstack.sh, which Teuthology OpenStack command calls in the backend, and it has code to actually uh, set up all these applications, clone all these repos like Paddles, Pulpito, and run the scripts which start these services. And also, given the subnet that we provide in Teuthology.yaml while triggering Teuthology OpenStack, so it picks all the IPs from that subnet and creates one entry for each of the IP. And populates it in Paddles DB. So the set of machine that it has is like basically from that subnet. And basically that script gets everything in running state. I mean, the next thing you can do is just log into that machine and start the Teuthology suit commands and start triggering the suits.
That's interesting. So it sounds like there's actually a lot more overlap between what you and Kira are talking about than I realized.
Yeah, just the Teuthology OpenStack is actually a very old way of deploying Teuthology. So and
Okay,
it's
so,
and the core deployment script, it's a bash shell script, which is trying to deploy application, but it doesn't deploy everything.
Oh, that's right. This predates the libcloud.
Yeah.
So that's right. That's right.
So the documentation, we referred the documentation, what was available for Teuthology OpenStack. Later on, we explored that, okay, it has not been maintained. So we started to revive that. We were not sure about Ceph, CM Ansible could do the same stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, Zach, do you remember the automated test checks like 4 years ago, which we had for SUSE, and it was using this Teuthology deployment script, which was using the Ceph CM Ansible to deploy the instances on regular basis.
I have a very vague memory of that, but probably not a very useful one. I do, yeah, I think it might make sense to in the future look at
I mean, it's something that what was existing, but I shut down it when the SUSE just closed the storage project, and we had no resources for running it. But
yeah,
I'm just I don't want to spend much time right now. Just we have a lot in other topics, but this is something that can be considered.
yeah, I guess we could move on, but I think the takeaway, at least for me, maybe, is that we in the future potentially consider having the more recent OpenStack work leverage Ceph CM Ansible to whatever extent it can, instead of just doing, shell-based deployment. I'll just write a little note in the pad about that. Maybe we should move on. Anything more to say about OpenStack? I don't want to cut it short, but we do have other things.
Nothing from my side, Zach.
Okay. So yeah, and like I was saying before, we have some libvirt and downburst stuff in there. Was that you, Kier, or was that someone else?
Yeah. Yeah, I just I don't know if anyone interested in this topic. Like the downburst stuff is updated to how it's called, this look up the generic images for recent versions of operating system like Ubuntu CentOS 8 and 9 stream, OpenSUSE and Rocky Linux, Alma Linux, and Fedora. It's updated to support them, and actually, it's still possible to use the downstream for downstream efforts, like set up a libvirt instance and run some tests against the whatever is built by Shaman. Yeah, and I submitted another patch for Teuthology to support RPM repos, which are supposed to be used instead, the Shaman or Chakra stuff.
You have any a link to any more information about the Shaman and Chakra stuff you just mentioned?
Yeah, this is using custom RPM repos. And, it's 3 lines.
Oh, I see. Yeah, thanks. Oh, this is filed yesterday.
So it's not kind of just it's a overrides the using overrides YAML. So you just add a list of repos to be added instead of Shaman stuff, and it will skip it. Looking up Shaman.
That's cool. I think this will actually be really useful. We have had some interest in being less dependent on Shaman and Chakra.
Yeah, and by the way, I already tested it with some custom builds against Rocky 9, like Smoke Suite. Mostly they were successfully executed.
Very cool.
No, just need to check if anything else can be used. Yeah, also I have several patches for Ceph CM Ansible, which are required for run those tests, because there is no recently support for, I don't know, some variables for CentOS that which needed to be declared in order to run them on generic images rather than whatever is provided by Ceph Lab.
Oh, interesting. That sounds like stuff we'd be interested in for sure. Because I don't think we would want to require our custom images. Do we have PRs filed for those patches?
Yep. There is a Rocky image, but it's waiting because David was saying that there is some effort about Ansible linter, which is gonna fix some error messages in the Ceph CM Ansible repo, and after that they want to. There is another PR for Rocky 10, which I'm not using yet. But yeah, I'm a bit on a Reef stuff right now, but I plan to check everything with newer versions of Ceph, like main.
Got
at
it.
least.
All right. Cool. Let's see. I should probably keep it moving. We're at 47 minutes here. Let's see. I see John. This is John Mulligan. I think you've got a PR linked in here.
Yep, I'll try to keep it short and sweet. I just kind of want to raise awareness of all the things that we've been discussing so far are really great. We want to keep in mind the structure of the code. And so I want to promote using abstractions to kind of encapsulate various parts of the code base. So I have an example PR where I've encapsulated the job queue and a thing I called machine pool, which right now there's two dummy implementations based on something that does work for me that use a SQLite instead of Beanstalk, and again SQLite instead of paddles and the related API servers. So I won't dig into details. I have a very long and hopefully detailed description. So I want to kind of get the conversation going about how to abstract some of these ideas so it's easier to build, some of these alternative backends, whether it's OpenStack or OpenShift. If you decided tomorrow we don't want to use Beanstalk anymore, could you replace it with something else? It should be a matter of adding a separate backend that meets the same interface. That's it.
Yeah. By the way, I looked at this PR a bit. So some of nice ideas, and one of the suggestions I would sound is maybe have a separate module job. It will include submodule queue, and some of the utility functions can move to job. module. You know what I'm saying?
I think so. Yeah, we could certainly have more detailed conversation in the PR. Don't want to. You only got 10 minutes left here, so appreciate
Right.
the thought.
Yeah, that's a good point, John. And apologies, I had not noticed this PR before. I think this is super interesting, and I think it's exciting. I think we need more abstraction. I think this is generally the right direction to go.
Yep,
Yeah,
that's generally my point.
And I like this move to machines naming instead of logs. Like it's more intuitive. Whatever is it? Machines and nodes.
I didn't quite get that.
Yeah, it's like we have a Teuthology log module with query, etc. stuff. So one of the ideas is just to move the naming for machines instead of.
Oh, I see. I see. Okay, I get it now. Yeah, I think I like that as well. Well, cool. We'll have to continue. This is definitely this is a larger conversation. I'm excited to continue this conversation in the PR and in future meetings as well. John, I really appreciate you thinking about this stuff. I guess that said, we should probably move on. Was there much to say about Proxmox?
I don't know. Just I've seen a lot of short names like Ceph, DevStack, OpenShift, and they just added Proxmox. So it's another point of interest that I don't know. Maybe someone else also interested in supporting Proxmox as a provisioning stuff.
The only thing I know about that is I think it was a candidate for future Sepia Lab infrastructure, but then was eliminated because of pricing. And so we're kind of just back to thinking about OpenShift. So I think at least from like the IBM side, we probably aren't really going to care specifically about Proxmox. But if someone were, submitting PRs, we'd of course, we'd have time to look at them and talk about them. All right, I guess moving on. I inserted some Pulpito NG stuff there. The stuff in, let's say the darker pink is kind of just informational. I do see a link to a PR for jobs page, which yes, that was Valerie. And that's marked as a work in progress. Valerie, did you have anything to say about the jobs page work?
Yeah, I can give a quick summary. So that PR is adding a jobs page, like a general page we have for runs, and we'll be able to filter jobs based on part of description or user and build information. This is mostly to help people who are reviewing runs to compare one of the jobs with other runs of the same job and stuff like that. So, yeah, it's still a work in progress. There is a basic working version in that PR, which is done, but I think it requires a set of improvements, which still needs work.
I see. Oh, cool. I can see that it's functional from the deploy preview. Cool. Any questions, comments on the jobs page? Just trying to keep us moving is all. All right. Well, thank you for that. I guess we should probably move on a little bit again. Build improvements. This is sort of tangential to Teuthology, so I'll keep this quick. We've done a lot of work recently on containerized builds and replacing large parts of our build system. A lot of that is kind of already in the past. The new build pipeline is not currently the default because of some issues that we had hit. I think they may have all been resolved. This is something we'll talk about actually, I think later today in a different meeting. A thing that is coming up in the future is David Galloway has done a bunch of work on a new release pipeline. Most of the stuff that I just mentioned was about development builds done in Jenkins for CI, but we want to reuse most of this conceptually to do our releases as well, because, well, it makes sense to do that. But it is more complex and it's, much higher consequence. So that's still in progress and something that we're really excited about. Any questions, comments on that stuff? Cool. And I see Junior got your compression work item here.
Yes, I can go over it quickly. So currently in Teuthology, we compress a huge amount of logs, OSD logs, Teuthology logs every day. We are using gzip level 5. Nothing wrong with that so far. However, I think that technology or compression tool is pretty old, and we started exploring other alternatives where basically in the in the GitHub repo that I posted in the pads, I did write a script to do a Teuthology compression benchmark. Quickly, how it works is I have a 300 megabytes test file, a Teuthology log, and a bunch of candidates compression algorithm. So gzip, of course, we have that, and broadly, XZ, LZ4, C standard, and also some of the multi-threaded version of these. So we have the C standard multi-threaded, PIXZ, which is the multi-threaded gzip, zip parallel bzip2, which is the parallel version. What we do is that we test each algorithm at 3 compression levels, low, mid, and high, and we run 10 iterations per configuration for statistical reliability. We use cold cache testing, so we touch for making sure that the cache is not some of the compressed are not cached. And we, there are other key features such as safely cleanup and things like that. What we look for is, compression size and compression time. So we have pretty much a 50-50 weight on them. And I guess if you go down to, the performance results, overall, bzip2, the parallel version of bzip2 has the best compression ratio. The fastest is probably C standard multi-threaded. And however, when it comes to picking which one is the best candidate, my summary is, of course, in the repo. What I had was that we think that C standard multi-threaded is the best when it comes to the trade-off between compression and the compression ratio and the compression speed. So C standard multi-threaded level 10, which is the mid-size, is 36% faster than gzip level 5, which is the current compression algorithm used in production today, and it is compressed 23% better. Now, why don't we choose bzip2? Because the bzip2 multi-threaded takes a lot longer. I can't remember it off the top of my head, but it's in like 20 seconds or something, which, yeah, it gives you better compression ratio, but we don't see it as, the trade-off of it being that slow when you have so many logs that you need to compress in one Teuthology run. It's just not, I think, practical. And one of the things that you might be concerned about C standard multi-threaded being, the replacement, being multi-threaded, it might use a lot of cores. Well, I think when you test Teuthology, the machines are basically isolated. So pretty much you're probably not going to affect, other, it will be contained. And we can always opt into, let's say, if we don't have enough cores, we write like a guardrail where we switch back to like a single core as well. But yeah, there is some rollout plans that I think about. So mostly, you have to change some of the code in Teuthology repo. But yeah, and the repo that I pasted in the pad, the script, you can run it locally as well. It's using, I think, containers. Yeah. And so you can run your own tests and, let me know how it goes if you're interested. But yeah, I think, yeah, that's it to keep it short.
Well, I gotta say, I love when we can make decisions based on evidence. So I appreciate your work there.
Yeah, thank you.
Anthony, I see we're over time. Is that a problem, or can we just run down the last couple items on this list?
It's fine with me. I don't know if there's any limitations towards the platform, but I'm good here.
Okay. Yeah, I don't want to go too much over because we're all busy folks, but just wanted to touch on the last couple items here. One is, I mentioned a couple times IBM is working on doing a new lab deployment. I am light on details as far as, well, we talked about this earlier, timeline, and some other things, but we do know that we need to support this different provisioner, MOS. It was created by Canonical, and our infrastructure team has been really happy with how it works. Here's a link to the project. We need to implement a provisioner backend in Teuthology to support MOS. I think that it should be a fairly simple thing to do. They have a REST API and a CLI utility. If we use the API method, I think we could mostly just lift the code that we use for fog and modify it to use their endpoints and probably change some semantics, but nothing super big. This is work that is not assigned yet. So if anyone is interested or has free time, I'd love to see someone pick it up. I'm really hesitant to pick it up myself. I feel like I have too many things in the air at the moment, just full disclosure. It is a good name. Junior says Metal as a Service sounds really cool.
Is there some? I've seen some messages that someone can provide access to the infrastructure to MOS, like to API or something that.
Yeah, so we have a MOS instance set up. I don't know if it is the production instance just yet or what the status is there. But of course, anyone that was going to be doing work on this backend would have to have access to that server. So we'd have to, I guess, reach out to Adam Kreitman most likely. Or if we start a thread in the Sepia channel, we can coordinate from there.
Yeah, it would be great to see if there is some instance and some pooler machines, not necessarily big, just a couple of them, or to see if it actually works.
Yeah, I think we do have the ability to lend out at least a few machines that are already in MOS. Without,
And
I'm not trying to put you on the hook. Is this something you'd be interested in working on, Kier?
at least I'm interested in looking into it just to see, to try out the mass itself. Then
Cool.
there's a side, and the side stuff I could just look into integration to Teuthology, but there is another more complicated stuff is connectivity with or integration it with the Sepia, because there is not only the problem just to add support to Teuthology worker or whatever is it called now, but make it integrated with Sepia, like name services, etc.
I would hope that has already been thought of by the infra folks, but we can double check. Yeah, maybe we start a thread with like Adam and maybe either Dan or David for completeness, or both.
Because most of the complicated stuff is just preparing the images in this case, just right. Like I don't know, do we plan to continue using Ceph CM Ansible scripts for preparing images, or maybe I don't know, we need to move out to some more generic images. I don't know.
Yeah, all good questions. As far as I'm aware, the intent is to continue to use FCM Ansible, but I wouldn't want us to necessarily require that. I think we'd want to be able to work with fresh images as well. But yeah, we can get into those details later on. Well, for now, yeah, we can start a thread and get you access and go from there.
Cool.
Any other questions or comments on the Metal as a service? So I guess the final thing that I had on here is this migration to UV. I linked a PR in the pad. This is something that's been in progress for a while, but I think I think it is probably close to the finish line. So what UV is it's a tool that kind of encapsulates the functionality of a lot of other Python tools in a pretty slick way, and it's also obscenely fast. For those of us used to Python world performance, it is kind of a refreshing thing, I think. I think it could really help us. Well, I think it will really help us manage our dependencies, and also will let us do things like get rid of talks if we want, and some other stuff. So if you have not taken a look, you may want to, because it'll likely find itself in main fairly soon. Yeah, John, talks is cool, but maybe not the ultimate. So I know we're a bit over, and we're at the end of the list, but I do want to leave it open for a sec if we have other questions or comments or concerns about the future of our work. All right. Well, I really appreciate everyone's time. Thanks for coming. Thanks, particularly Parfait. I really appreciate your presentation, and Deepshika, your work on the OpenStack backend. Yeah, really nice to have everyone here. And Anthony, thanks for coordinating this. Really appreciate your work as well.
Sure thing. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Zach, and everyone for contributing. I'll get this recording out hopefully by Thursday or Friday this week. But take care, everyone.
Sounds great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.